All right, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. I'm Nick, and this is our daily Cowboys show. We're obviously in the thick of training camp. Past couple of days, been some rough injury news on the Cowboys front. Some turned out better than expected, but we got a lot of great updates out of Cowboys camp when it comes to the coaching staff doing a lot of good things. When it comes to some rookies stepping up, some surprising names as well. We'll get to the latest stories in just 1 second, but let's get things started with our chart or stat of the day, as I like to focus on. And this will tie into a lot of what we see when it comes to rookies and new additions emerging. So pulling up the chart here for you guys to see, it's a little bit of an eye chart, a lot of stuff there, but basically what this is showing here is rush defense from the 2024 season. And I know a lot of you are like, yeah, the Cowboys were terrible. We don't need to see another chart. But I just think we need to emphasize how bad, like disastrous it was for Dallas last season. You can see on the x-axis there were snaps per rush. On the y-axis it was defensive EPA per rush. You can see the Cowboys, they're kind of bolded and popped there, right there towards the bottom. The rest of the teams in the NFL are kind of grayed out a little bit, but you can see nearly every team in the National Football League, except for the Carolina Panthers, is well above Dallas in EPA per rush, regardless of how many snaps they were on the field. So the Dallas Cowboys really, really bad at stopping the run last year. I think we all know this. I think we all understand this. But I think it's also important to understand where we are as a defense right now. We know the secondary. There's injuries concerns there. Waiting on Parsons to return. There's some good news. Kyrie Elam having himself a heck of a camp. Donovan Ezraku having himself a heck of a camp. Both rush defense that bad, a lot, or this bad, I should say on the screen. A lot of it may not matter. They're going to need some help here. And to that end, let's get to our first story of the day. All right, let's pull this up here. This is courtesy of Patrick Walker. His Twitter handle at Voice of the Star. You should follow him if you're looking for good Cowboys news. He's great. Jay Toya is getting a good bit of first-team work in today's practice. The fact that he can move so well at that size is terrifying. He's a big nose tackle. The rookie is making the starting offensive line earn their money. All right, we talk about run defense, getting better at that. I think the most important part there is the interior defensive line, because we know three technique defensive tackle there for the Cowboys will be Oso Digizua. He is not known as a run defender. He is one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles in all the NFL. That's undeniable. That's why you pay him the big bucks. Against the run, he's okay. He's serviceable, but you're going to need a big, strong force inside at that nose tackle, that one technique. So when you hear the phrase one technique, if you're not familiar, that's on the outside shoulder of the center. A zero technique or nose tackle is head up on the center. A three technique is outside shoulder of the guard, just for anyone's awareness who's not familiar with that terminology. But when you look at someone playing that zero technique, that one technique, that interior defensive lineman, big, strong guy to stop the run. Mazi Smith was supposed to be that guy drafted a few years ago. He has been absolutely, I'll just be blunt about it, terrible, right? And I don't mean to be mean to him. I'm not trying to disparage him or anything. That's just eye test, analytics, no matter where you look at it. Mazi Smith has not been good for a first-round pick. He's just not been good, period. And it's been a big position of concern for Dallas, especially as we get closer to the regular season. And now it looks like they're turning to Jay Toya. I think, and we talked about this about a week ago, that Mazi Smith was on his way out. The Cowboys had reportedly were considering him, getting him some reps at three technique, getting him some reps at other positions on the defensive line. To me, that was a sign they were preparing for him to his release. He was essentially done as a run stuffer at the nose tackle, one technique position, not getting it done. They kind of said, listen, we'll try you at a few other spots. We'll throw some final Hail Marys, for lack of a better word, to give you another opportunity to see if there's another position you're okay at. If not, you're gone. And I think the emergence of Jay Toya is an indication that Mazi Smith is likely gone. If he's not starting, if he's not playing well, there's no reason to keep along the roster. He will be cut. That's my opinion. I'm not rooting against him, by the way. I hope he turns it around and I hope he does well. I was a big fan of his in college. I like Michigan. I like what Harbaugh did with the Wolverines. It just hasn't worked out in Dallas. That's just the reality of it. Not trying to be too mean or not trying to sugarcoat it here. I like to be positive on this channel. But when it comes to Mazi Smith, it just hasn't worked out. But with Toya, there's a chance that it could work out. He's a guy that's known exclusively as a run stuffer. He's a big physical presence. The fact that he's moving well, according to Walker, is a great sign. We'll have to see what he does over the course of training camp in the preseason. You talk about an under-the-radar rookie that could emerge as a massive steal, a big-time contributor. Toya is one to keep an eye on. All right, let's get into their next report here. This is courtesy of Joseph Hoyt at Joe J. Hoyt. The two starting corner combos I've seen for the Cowboys today are contingent on Deron Bland's position. When Bland is outside, Bland, Kyrie Elam, and Keemon Hall in the slot. When Bland is in the slot, Bland, Elam, and Troy Pride Jr. outside. So what we've seen there is that these are the 4 Cowboys corners. We've got Bland, Elam, right? You can see those are the commonalities. And then you've got Hall and Troy Pride Jr., right? So that's the 4 some of the Cowboys are going to go with week 1 against Philadelphia, unless Trayvon Diggs returns from injury sooner than expected. I don't think he will. If he does, we'll take it. Not expected. So this is we're talking a little bit negative here with interior defensive line. Cornerback position does have some question marks. Now, to be fair, Kyrie Elam's had a great camp. He just had his 3rd interception at camp yesterday. He's doing a lot of great things. You look at both Hall and Pride. These are guys that have some playing experience. Are they elite corners? No. Are they top notch? No. But can they line up and play? Yeah, they can be okay. And you have a guy in Andrew Booth who was a disaster last season. He, again, I'm trying not to be negative, but he just totally was. What he did at Philly was just god awful. It just was a really rough game for him. Wish him the best going forward, but he's not a guy that's ready to contribute. Totally honest. The fact that they don't have to rely on Booth to be one of their foursome, barring any other injuries, is a really good sign. And look, this is one of those things that can happen across the NFL, whether it's week 1 or week 18, right? You're going to have injuries. You're going to have a mix and match. The key is to have enough pieces and combinations you can play with. I love that the Cowboys, and this is where Bland's versatility really shows up. They're not stuck in a position where, okay, Bland has to be an outside corner, and then we got to find guys for the other 2 positions. The fact that Bland can be a slot allows them to say, okay, who's better between Pride or Keeman Hall or maybe someone else who emerges from the fold? It doesn't force them to find, let's say, a better nickel corner. And if they don't have any good nickel corners, they're screwed. But let's say they have a lot of good outside corners. They like Pride and Keeman Hall on the outside. Okay, we'll move Bland into the slot, and we'll have Pride be on the outside. Or if we think Keeman Hall's doing good things in the slot, we'll keep Bland on the outside, and we'll put Pride on the bench, right? That gives them flexibility, and that will really help us to try and just get through this rough patch with the injuries at corner. Because the cavalry's on the way. Diggs is coming. Revel's coming eventually. Butler's coming. There's cavalry coming for the Dallas Cowboys at the cornerback position. The question will be when it will come. Do you have enough depth and potential to get through the early part of the season? They've got 2 combination, 2 bites at the apple. I think this is a positive development for this part of the defense. All right, next story here. This is courtesy of John Machoto over at The Athletic. Cowboys coach Brian Schottenheimer, the best thing you can do for any offensive line, any team offense, when you're playing elite defensive linemen, is to pound the freaking football. Just freaking try to shove it up their ass. And that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to be physical. Yeah, so this is obviously great to see and great to hear. I love that he's public about it. One of the things I love when coaches go public to the media, it's a statement to their coaching staff, it's a statement to the players, to the entire organization. This is our identity. We're going to be physical. We're going to be nasty. This is who we are. Push comes to shove. Whether we win by 20 or lose by 20, lose a close game, win a close game, we are going to be physical. We are going to be nasty. And I love this mentality because if you look at the best team in football right now, reigning Super Bowl champions, Philadelphia Eagles, they have that sort of, whether it's you like it or not, this demeanor of being the biggest, baddest dude on the block because they've thrown so much capital in terms of their interior defensive line. They got all these linebackers, Fangio. They just kind of fancy themselves the biggest, baddest dude on the block. I love the fact that Schottenheimer's saying, listen, we're going to pound these people in the freaking mouth with running the football right at them. We're not scared. We're not going to back away. Look, it may not work out well for us, but guess what? We're not gonna stand down. We're gonna go at them and pound the football right at them. I love this approach. I love this strategy. Again, you're trying to set an attitude. You're trying to set an identity. You don't want any cop outs. And this is one of the things I think can happen when you have a veteran team versus a young team. A veteran team, I'll use the example of the second half of the Patriots dynasty. Very veteran team. You're very strategic. You're very savvy. You're very versatile. 1 week, you're 5 wide receivers. Next week, you're powering the football. If you got a younger team, which the Cowboys do, right? If you take away like Dak Prescott, who's been around obviously a long time, it's a young group. Offensive line, very young. Running back room, very young. Receivers, very young. Tight end, young. Front seven, young. Defensive backfield, it's a little bit of a mix in the DBs, but they got some young guys there as well. This is one of the younger teams in football. People forget that because we've seen Prescott so much, but the reality is not a veteran group. So this is about attitude more than anything else. This is about mentality. This is about culture. Pound the football. This is who we're going to be. And one of the great things about this strategy is that it works. Because the way you can just run the football effectively, if you're committed to it and you're going to go downhill at people, is you can get 3 or 4 yards pretty successfully if you don't do any fancy stuff, if you're get behind center and just run right at people, right? Now, will it work over the course of a game? Will it allow you to win the game? Maybe, maybe not. That's what we'll have to see. But by just setting that attitude and just setting the culture now, you're getting everyone to buy in. Booker's going to buy in. The front seven's going to buy in. Whoever replaces Guyton in the short term is going to buy in. Running backs are all in. Prescott's going to love it. Everyone gets behind it. It also forces the receivers to say, hey, listen, when we get our opportunities, we're going to take advantage of them because we may not get a lot of them because we're going to be a physical football team. I love this mentality here from Schottenheimer. Again, no excuses. Oh, we're down a left tackle. Who cares? We're just going to run the football right at somebody. Love this mentality from Schottenheimer. Again, he was hired, in my opinion, to be a culture shift in Dallas, right? This isn't like the Wade Phillips hiring where, hey, Parcells did a good job. We got to push this team over the top. Or a Jason Garrett hiring, hey, Garrett's going to be the guy to take this team over the top. Phillips couldn't do it. Or it's going to be the Mike McCarthy hiring where it's like, well, Garrett didn't work out. He couldn't take this team over the top. Maybe McCarthy can. He's won a Super Bowl. It ain't those hirings. This is much closer to the Bill Parcells hiring in 2003, resetting the culture, resetting the attitude, and that's exactly what Schottenheimer is doing here. All right, next story. This is courtesy of Nick Harris at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Great reporter. You should follow him on X. He posted Cowboys rookie running back Jaden Blue getting his first good burn, that means playing time repetitions, with the first team unit today. Yeah, Blue's going to be a big part of this offense, and he's getting better and better. You listen to the coaching staff, he's doing good things. He's dominating social media with the highlight clips, which gets the fans excited, of course. We talked about Schottenheimer's comments a second ago, running the football, running right at people. We talked about Dallas turning younger, right? They're going to Toya, young guy, Jaden Blue, already a younger team. This is a completely different Cowboys team, what we've seen in years past. Stylistically, honestly, this team is starting to remind me a little bit of the 2003 Dallas Cowboys, where they kind of were a hodgepodge of guys, far from a perfect roster, but found a way to get it done, running the football, ball control, Bill Parcells mentality, and good, better than expected defense in 2003. That's what this team reminds me of right now. Now, I don't know if they're going to win 10 games. I don't know if they're going to win 8 games. I don't know if they're going to win 12 games. That all remains to be seen. But it's clear Dallas has an identity of wanting to run the football, and they're starting to find the pieces, whether you're a veteran guy or a rookie, whether you're a 7th round pick or, first round pick. We're going to put guys on the field that help us establish our identity, and that includes guys like Booker at guard to be, running the football in terms of an offensive lineman perspective, and guys like Jaden Blue, emerging at the running back position. And again, this is a guy who took some criticism from hit pieces that I've already talked enough about at this channel that I think were totally fabricated and made up, but he's overcome that. He's overcome that crap, and he's done a great job. Credit to him, continuing to put it behind him, being mature, and getting better and better as a player. This Cowboys selection, I tell you what, a lot of people thought it had a chance to be a steal. We'll have to see it during preseason and more training camp, of course, but looking very good, this young running back out of Texas. All right, chugging right along here. This is another report courtesy of Patrick Walker, talking culture here. I'm going to start at the bottom and then work up because he got a kind of responded to his own tweet here. Walker posted, things are again getting chippy at practice, so Brian Schottenheimer is making the players run sideline to sideline and for several minutes. And then Walker responded to it later saying the PG version via CD Lamb on what Schottenheimer said in the huddle to end the Cowboys practice today. Do we want to be champions? Lamb's take, over the years, talent was never the problem. It's been discipline. Right on. Yes. Now, am I saying running sprints is going to help this team win games? No, of course not. The reason this is punishment, the reason this is important, is we've seen this since basically the Wade Phillips era, all the way through Mike McCarthy in 2024, is that this has been a Cowboys franchise that's been ridiculously undisciplined, an incredible amount of penalties, an incredible amount of dumb mistakes all the time. I mean, Parcells' teams had a few of their flaws, but it wasn't the same manner that we've seen over the years with the Cowboys. And this is, I think, one of the things that Schottenheimer was brought in to do, right? Change the culture, reset the mindset going on in Dallas, right? It had been such status quo for a long time. That's why, in my mind, I kind of liked guys like DeMarcus Lawrence going to greener pastures because he was part of a different era, different mindset, different mentality. Tyron Smith and Zach Martin, great players, would have fit well into the system. I honestly believe that, but they were from a different era. It's time to hand it off to the next generation, and that's exactly what the Cowboys have done. They're resetting the entire culture. You go back to last season, Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, what do? They bring back retreads. They bring back Ezekiel Elliott after letting him go in 2022. He goes to the Patriots in 23. Not a whole lot going on there. Goes back to Dallas in 24. It's not the same guy, right? Even though he's a big-name player, obviously at the end of his career. The problem with Dallas in a lot of years, exactly like C. Lamb said, wasn't talent. It was discipline. It was culture. It was cohesion. One of the great things about the Jimmy Johnson Dallas Cowboys was that he reset the culture, right? Everyone understands and knows the trade, the Herschel Walker trade and the draft picks, and the talent they built very quickly was a huge part, maybe the predominant part of their magical title run in the 1990s. But it was just as much as culture as anything else. In fact, if you go look at the Cowboys in the 60s and 70s and early 80s with Landry and those great teams, if you look at the years where they struggled, the beginning of the franchise in the early 60s, it was because Landry couldn't get buy-in from his players. There's a great book, Landry's Boys. It's been out for a while. Highly recommend it, Cowboys fans. Make sure you check it out. where it talks about how the first generation of Cowboys players into the franchise just didn't buy in at all. And then they started to buy in the mid to late 60s. And by the 70s, led by Roger Staubach, everyone's bought in. And that was the birth of America's team. We saw it kind of phase out in the mid to late 80s. And that's when Jimmy Johnson had to come in and reset the culture. But ever since Jimmy Johnson, with that brief exception for a few years with Parcells from 03 to 2006, it just hasn't been a good culture to be in terms of what you need to win. Belichick has a tough culture. Reed, Chiefs have a tough culture, right? You want to win. You want to be consistently making deep playoff runs. You got to have thick skin. You got to be disciplined. You look at teams that win a lot of games. The Pittsburgh Steelers, great example of this. A lot of talent, smart coach, good franchise across the board, good ownership group, but they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Right? Everyone looks at the Cowboys and their postseason struggles, and rightly so. The Steelers have been worse in the time frame if you start at 2016 to now. And you sit there and say, why? They've had good players. They've had stars. They've had defensive player of the years. They've had good quarterbacks. They've had Hall of Fame quarterbacks. What's going on here? Lack of discipline, lack of culture. That's what hurts those kind of teams. And I think we look at the Dallas Cowboys as fixing that problem. The Detroit Lions, great example. Dan Campbell, he's a smart football mind, but that's not what he does in Detroit. He is a culture guy. The Cowboys have gotten their own kind of model here with Schottenheimer. He is a culture guy. He is a reset guy, exactly what they need in Dallas. Really good to see this. And again, you're starting to see the veteran players, the stars like CeeDee Lamb, buy in already early in training camp. That's a great sign for Dallas going forward. All right, next story here. This is, again, courtesy of Nick Harris at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, also involving CeeDee Lamb. Harris posted, Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb said his ability to get open is night and day compared to last year, now that he has George Pickens drawing attention. When I have two guys on me, I can guarantee the ball is going to him. When two guys are on me, he's one-on-one. Do what you want with that info. It's honestly fun, just him understanding the process of taking what we do in meetings and taking it out on the field, and it immediately click with him in walkthroughs. It's kind of impressive. I like that because I'm that type of receiver too. Yeah, this is sort of the compounding effect that when you bring in quality football players, and this is the difference between getting veterans, established players, and going rookies and developing them, right? And the Cowboys over the past really decade have done a great job, for the most part, not perfect, but pretty good, drafting and developing rookies and young guys and eventually then becoming good Cowboys. But the problem with really not using free agency and trades, which the Cowboys admittedly have not done a lot prior to the big Pickens deal, is that you don't have that compound effect of adding an immediate star right away. So you have a star in CeeDee Lamb, great wide receiver, but then you drafted Jalen Tolbert, right? And you're just like, hey, he's good. Maybe eventually he'll come along. Or you sign Brandon Cooks at the end of his career, or you throw in you get a Ryan Flournoy or something like that, right? None of these guys are any sort of big names. They're not any real help to CeeDee Lamb. They're not anybody that draws any sort of fear or concern. So CeeDee Lamb doesn't get the opportunity to play with someone else. He's still facing double teams regardless of who they play and when they play him. But you immediately add Pickens, right? What happens day one? Now opposing offensive defensive coordinators, they have to find Pickens too. They have to pick their poison. Last season, and really in 2023, if we're being honest, opposing defenses could be like, okay, let's find 88 at all times, roll coverage to him, double him. Let's figure that out. We'll see. We'll deal with whatever happens with the other guys. Now in 2025, if they do that, Pickens is one-on-one, and Pickens can take over games. He is that good. He is that talented. He has a little bit of that Amari Cooper kind of ability to him. Different kind of player stylistically by a big margin, but just like Cooper could have that ability to just go off for 200 receiving yards or $180 and just take over an entire game. Of course, there was that Thanksgiving Day against Washington in 18, and later in 18, home against Philadelphia, where he had 3 touchdowns, including the walk-off in overtime, right? He had the ability to just take over those kind of games. Pickens has that ability where if he's up against someone one-on-one that just isn't in his class, he'll go off for 200. He'll catch 3 touchdowns, right? He has that talent. He did that in Pittsburgh. So opposing defenses and defensive coordinators will have to make really, really tough decisions. And guess what? If they go 2 deep safeties and say, listen, we're just, watch out for the mic there. We're just going to, take away everything for the Cowboys passing game, 2 deep safeties, corners manned up on them. Guess what happens then? You have a light box, and what do? You run the freaking football if you listen to Coach Schottenheimer. Football can be very simple sometimes, right? If you just have better players, including when you get to compounding them with star players, good things can happen. That's what the Cowboys have. They finally have that complement to CeeDee Lamb. Everyone was hoping Michael Gallup could be that. He never could. They let Amari go via that trade. A lot of consternation there. A lot of it makes no sense when you look at past and situations. Now, I will say this. If Gallup could have come back from that injury and been fine, maybe we would have had a different story there. But the reality is he didn't. So CeeDee Lamb's kind of been on his own really since, 2022? But he figured it out this year, or I should say the Cowboys figured it out this year, paired him with George Pickens. Whether CeeDee Lamb gets the same amount of receptions, I kind of doubt it. I actually think his volume will drop, but his effectiveness, his efficiency will increase radically, and we'll see Pickens win games by himself with his sheer playmaking ability when he gets those one-on-one chances, and he's going to get a lot of them. And again, like I said, if teams try and double both these wide receivers, Schottenheimer, this offensive lineman, Clayton Adams, Jaden Blue, they will run the football right at you. There's a little bit of a chance here where if things go well for Dallas and they don't have a catastrophic run of injuries, that this offense could leap right back into being a top 8, top 6 offense, at least from an efficiency perspective. I don't know about yards or points. We'll have to see how that all shakes out. But in terms of just simple high level, 2 great receivers, good tight end, run the football mentality, veteran quarterback, play action offense, this has a really good chance here to be one of the better offenses in the NFL. People are kind of sleeping on it right now, but I wouldn't be surprised when it's all said and done if this Cowboys offense surprises to the upside, especially with the combination of Pickens and CeeDee Lamb emerging. All right, that's enough of the stories from yesterday. Let's go into some of the comments we got over the past couple of days and kind of talk about them here. This first one is from Frankie Clayton 9303. He did this in kind of a 3-comment thread. He said, I love how this coach is establishing the team, but I'm going to tell you something. These regular stars keep getting injured and hurt. If these backup players come in and outperformed and they dominate, it's going to make the regular players look terrible and bad, and they're going to be the ones getting paid and getting all the accolades, and you can't get mad because you should have been healthy. You know, this is the beauty of football and the beauty of training camp. And one of the things that's a risk when you're a top-heavy roster like Dallas, and there are other teams like this as well, where you're such reliant on stars, right? There was the old basketball analogy, if you look at the old Lakers, where Kobe Bryant would do amazing things, and you take it back to the 90s and sort of in between, whether it was Michael Jordan and then Allen Iverson, is that there was always the concerns that you had these stars and the teammates on the basketball court would just be caught like watching the stars and being in awe of them, and you wouldn't play as good as a team. They wouldn't be as active. And when you have a top-heavy roster with stars, and like we saw last year, right? A lot of the team was basically, wow, look at CeeDee Lamb. Wow, look at Dak Prescott. Wow, look at Micah Parsons. And you need some of these young guys and other guys to kind of step up in their own right. And some of them did, like DeMarvion Overshawn. Maris Leofau had his moments as well. Cooper Beebe, right? There's a lot of guys that stepped up and became quality players and will continue to become quality players and continue to develop. But I think sometimes, especially after 2022 and 2023, with how, and really 2021 too, to be honest, 3 straight 12-win seasons, there was a lot of watching going around. The Cowboys had star power. If you weren't a star, I think you almost, not by like intention, but just by matter of fact, you would become kind of caught in like expecting some of these other guys to make plays instead of making plays yourself. You have some injuries. Guess what? These young guys realize it's an opportunity, new coaching staff, then they get to step up and shine, and your team gets better because of it. I think actually some of these injuries, and no, you don't root for injuries, of course, but some of these opportunities emerging for some of these young guys, that's a sign of a healthy program, because there's a lot of good football players that if they're given the opportunity could shine out for the Cowboys. I'm excited to see what they do over preseason. Again, this is the best part of preseason. Young guys getting opportunities to find a way to make a roster for themselves. That's how Kevontae Turpin got his chance. I don't know if the next Turpin is on this Cowboys roster in terms of rookie class, but there's a lot of guys, a lot of good rookies. We've talked about them all camp. Toya is one specifically at defensive line to keep an eye on. I'm excited what he does in their first preseason game, and I'll watch him going forward. A lot of buzz in Dallas, especially when it comes to these young players. All right, got another comment right here. This is from Tracy Z9P6P. Does anyone know if Elam can play slot when Diggs gets healthy? Well, I think that goes back to, do you move Deron Bland to the slot? I think that's what the Cowboys would do, to be totally honest. If Diggs is healthy and returning, they move Deron Bland to the slot and they put Kyrie Elam on the outside. Now, it doesn't sound as bad as you might think, because Deron Bland, of course, played a lot of slot his rookie year and was a pretty good slot corner on situationally for the Cowboys when the opportunity arose. Had that great game against Philly, had an interception against Jacksonville, right? He was a pretty good player for the Cowboys, and actually started the 2023 season, playing in the slot when the Cowboys had Diggs, and of course, this is Stephon Gilmore. Name almost failed me for a second. As their 2 outside corners to start the year. So he has experience with that. He's done that before. I think moving him to slot makes sense. I think the fact that the Cowboys ownership, Stephen Jones, has said, listen, we want to sign him. We're already talking about extending him. We love the fact he's versatile. I think that makes him more likely to want to do it because outside gets more money. I think if the Cowboys, with their public-facing statement saying, we're going to pay Bland, we want to pay Bland, whether he's an outside corner or inside corner. The fact that he can do both is extremely valuable. I think that means DaRon Bland is likely to move to the slot, and you live with Kaiir Elam on the outside. Now, we'll have to see how things shake out, of course, depending on what matchups and personnel, but I think that's what the Cowboys are going to do. Bland at slot, Diggs outside on the one side, and Elam on the outside on the other. And again, what that allows you to do structure-wise for a defense is rotate your safeties to Kaiir Elam. So you have Diggs on an island, you have Bland on an island in the slot, you rotate your safeties to whoever Kaiir Elam is covering that situation, and then there you go. That's your defensive structure from a coverage perspective. And then in that deal, you actually got decent matchups. You got your number 1 and number 2 corners on an island against a team's receivers in the slot and on the outside, and your other third corner, your weakest spot, you can rotate to him, kind of cover up any deficiencies there. It's not perfect, but it's not terrible, and I think that's the Cowboys' plan when Diggs is healthy. Let's see here. This is from @SafetyScrewMarket. I want to see more Blue and Maffa. I already know what Sanders and Williams look like. Yeah, it's a great point, and we are seeing Jaden Blue. It sounds like the Cowboys coaching staff agrees with you. Not a lot of Phil Maffa yet. I think that's something to keep an eye on, but I think he's going to be a guy that's going to get more opportunities towards the back half of training camp and preseason, because right now I think their priority is Jaden Blue and figuring out where he fits in this offense and seeing if Deuce Vaughn has a chance, right? Once they answer those 2 questions, then we'll see more Phil Maffa. And again, I think Maffa, his rookie season, if he makes a team, he's short yardage, he's goal line, right? I don't think he's a guy that's going to get more than 3 or 4 carries a game, but I think he can be a big time contributor in those knee situations. I do agree with you. I want to see more of him, but that probably won't happen until the second half of the preseason. This is from Mike Buck 1897. Cowboys had a solid draft. Nate Thomas is another one that is blossoming. Talking about Nathan Thomas, who was selected last year. He's beating out Asim Richards for the swing tackle. Yeah, we talked about it yesterday. He's actually getting first-team reps. This is a guy, again, this is what happens in the NFL sometimes. There are guys that are forgotten, guys that are good players, potential steals. We brought up the data when it came to Thomas yesterday that last year, just comparable to guys that were drafted in the 2nd and 3rd round, we would have said Nathan Thomas was a potential steal for Dallas, getting him in the 7th round. He obviously got hurt, and he's just forgotten. But now he goes into training camp, has a great offseason, doing some good things, beating out Asim Richards. I tell you what, you talk about steals, you talk about young guys emerging. This is one of the better stories in Cowboys camp so far. Him and Kaiir Elam are to me right now the best stories. Elam emerging as a guy left for dead in Buffalo, coming to Dallas, doing some good things. Great to see that. And Nathan Thomas, Cowboys need a swing tackle. They need depth. No one, myself included, had given this kid a chance. 7th round pick. He may not even make the team this year. Suddenly he's emerging as a guy who could be a week 1 starter. Great story. And I tell you what, he's just getting better and better. A lot of rave reviews out of Nathan Thomas so far this camp. Certainly one to keep an eye on over the course of the rest of the offseason. All right, I think that's the comments I'm going to address today. As always, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section below. Really want to hear from you guys. That's my favorite part of doing this show, is to actually read your comments and respond to them. I think a lot of the comments are really good, really insightful, and I learn a lot of things, and hopefully you learn something from me. But until next time, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection.